Welcome to the American Diversity Report podcasts, where we interview movers and shakers and diverse change makers. I'm Deborah Levine, editor of the American Diversity Report and your host. And with me today, it's wonderful, is Forrest T. Harper Jr., who is president and CEO of INROADS, the nation's largest nonprofit organization of salaried internships and corporate and community leadership development for outstanding ethnically diverse talent at the pipeline and mid-career levels. Welcome, Forrest.
Well, thank you, Deborah, and I truly appreciate the invitation.
Well, it's wonderful to have you, and Sabrina, who works with you. It is just a pleasure. And I know that you are celebrating about 50 years worth of this organization's operations, and that it has given great value to the community and the business world. People like yourself are usually driven by incredible passion. Would you like, before we talk about the organization, to share what is it that motivates you?
Well, Deborah, thank you very much. I'm from a small town in Southeast Florida called Fort Pierce, Florida. And I grew up in public housing with a single parent, but always a vision on the future about I wanted to be the best I could be, but also help my family at the same time and lift others around me. So after a stint in the military and after 30 years in the pharmaceutical industry, I saw what was a gap, and that was minorities not being in corporate America at the levels. Today, we have less than 3 CEOs that are African American. We also have less women than men in the Fortune 500. So one of the things I wanted to do was to make my way through corporate America. Once I got through the 30-year career, I looked back, Deborah, and I said, wait a minute. I've been the first and only African-American at Pfizer as an executive for over 30 years. There's nothing I can do about being the first, but there's a lot I can do about being the only. So my passion has to do with truly focusing in on making sure that there is no only from that standpoint, so that we can be able to help others that are minorities through the pipeline, all the way to the C-suite, and actually own their own companies. That's what drives my passion. And INROADS gives me the ability to help lead that.
Wonderful. And what milestones have INROADS created lately?
Well, I think to talk about the milestones, I truly have to talk about the beginning. And the beginning was in 1944, the class of 1944 out of Princeton University. A white stately gentleman by the name of Frank Carr graduated. He went on to be in the Air Force, a Navy pilot, and then he went to become in corporate America. Frank was a very well-to-do family, advertising agency, and one day he woke up and said, there's an injustice going on in the country. I want to do something about it. And it was about racism. It was about jobs. It was about unequal pay. It was about fairness to African-American and Hispanics. And so what he did, he took a busload of children, both Black and Hispanic, to the March on Washington. And when he took them there, he heard Martin Luther King Jr. speak, I Have a Dream speech. He left that march, went home, and he told his wife he was quitting his job. That thump you heard was his wife falling over and saying, you're gonna do what? His goal was to start an organization that could help develop and train talented minorities in the ghettos and the barrios in those days to get to INROADS into corporate America. And that's how INROADS started. Now that was in the 70s. Here we are today, facing similar situations on equity, on racism, on equal opportunity in corporate America. And his vision is still ongoing after 50 years. As a matter of fact, we have over 40,000 alumni that have come through the program, and they're in C-suites. The Son the Duckett, the first African-American female at JP Morgan Chase to reach the CEO ranks, all the way to entertainment. Sterling K. Brown, the Grammy Award-winning actor, to Aloe Black, the actual Grammy Award winner, too. So, and we've got people who have excelled, and we also have families that have excelled over the years. So that's what gives me passion, is to see this organization do this on a daily basis.
Oh my goodness. How long have you been the CEO?
This is my 11th year, and I'm not tired yet. This is not, as they say, titles are rented, but the passion is more important. And so this is a ministry for me. This is not a job, and it's not a title.
I well understand how that works. I do indeed. So tell me, what do you think is the problem in the corporate world? Why are they missing the mark?
Well, we have to understand a little bit more about how we got here. And a big part of this is really taking on the topic of race. We believe that fundamentally there is so much and so many untapped, talented people of color that are marginalized on a daily basis. Corporate America has rules and regulations and processes that sometimes get in the way of those who are people of color to exercise their optimal performance. And corporate America is no different than the front offices of sports and NFLs and baseball and you name it. So the whole nation of all corporations are the same, but they're starting to make a difference. And back about 4 years ago, thanks to Tim Ryan and PwC and his vision, over 700 CEOs signed a CEO in Action agreement to do something about diversity and inclusion in corporate America. It's called CEO in Action. And since then, they've been able to focus on internally making sure they take down the barriers to diversity and equity and inclusion. Even though they've made a lot of work, they still have work to do. That's why organizations like Take on Race, which is led by Procter & Gamble, a focus on taking on race and what is the role of corporate America in order to take it on inside the walls of corporate America and outside the walls in the community. And so I think that corporate America is in a great position to actually act. And we know when corporate America acts, they get things done. And so I just think that although they're challenging, they got work to do, they're beginning to act as corporate America.
Mm-hmm. When you think of the actions that they can make and some of the things that you're going to press for going forward, what are some of the ones that come to mind right off the bat?
Well, first of all, they began addressing this back about 11 years ago with women in leadership roles, pay equity, and those things. They've made some progress, a lot of progress. There are more women CEOs than there were before. We still got a lot of room to go, but they did put a focus called by design and resources. If you do it by design, that is intentional, unapologetically designed, that you want to increase the number of women in the C-suite or on board of directors, you can do it as a corporation. You've got to design it, hold people accountable, and then put resources behind it. Well, the same thing about minorities and marginalized populations. Corporate America has begun to do it. So since the unfortunate deaths of Mr. Floyd and Breonna and others, since June, corporate America has pledged over $7 billion to focus on social injustice strategies to mitigate some of the things. And so that's a lot of money to put on the table to do something. But when corporate America put resources behind it and they take actions, things do tend to happen. So the jury's still out. I'll be very candid with you. But I do believe they're headed in the right direction by putting the pledges and the commitments to action. And I think that as time will tell, we'll see what happens. But for INROADS, their commitment is based on how you can get the pipeline ready for diverse talent to get to the C-suite 10 to 20 years from now.
Yeah.
Deborah, today, according to NACE, the National Association of Colleges and Employers, there are over 42,000 paid internships in the country by the top 200 companies. Of that 42,000 today, less than 6% are African American, less than 4% are Hispanic. That's unacceptable.
How about
Unacceptable.
and women? How about
And women, I don't have that number in front of me, but just by looking at that alone, we know we've got work to do. However, corporate America can make a difference because they can design their pipelines to be able to take in and recruit more and widen the net so that minorities like Hispanics and African Americans can apply more to paid internships. You solve two challenges. You give access and you also impact the social economics
yes,
of Blacks and Hispanics at the same time.
absolutely. Absolutely. We need that more than ever these days during COVID-19, especially when so many people are suffering and so many small businesses, they're just gone. We need to reboot our economy, yes?
Absolutely. And by the way, part of that is what we're celebrating this 50th year.
Yes.
Tomorrow we'll be releasing a very compelling report that has to do with our founder, Frank Carr's vision when he produced INROADS. What has been the social economic impact of INROADS over time?
Oh,
We
good.
know we got more jobs. We know we got into the C-suite, but economically, what happened? So the data that's being released tomorrow, November 5th, is that INROADS built the Black middle class economically. How did we do it? Well, our researchers, a Fulbright scholar, along with the help of the St. Louis Fed Reserve, Wealth Engine, and also folks like John Rogers over at Arrow Capital, looked at our INROADS alum when they get through the process. We have over 40,000. We took a look at home ownership, net worth, and net assets in their wealth creation. And our INROADS alum, were Blacks and Hispanics, outpaced their white counterparts in home ownership, net worth, and net assets. That tells us that not only is the model working when he built it 50 years ago, but if we scale it, we can actually slow down the actual racial wealth gap in America. It's being reported out in a report by McKinsey this week, and also Citigroup reported out a part of our findings about 2 weeks ago.
Wonderful, my goodness. And given what's going on these days with COVID, you're going to be needed more than ever, are you not?
Absolutely. Not only are we needed during this time, typically when we have some kind of divide, digital divide, healthcare disparities, minorities are impacted the greatest. But if ever before we saw some things happen, we saw the nation come together in COVID in a number of ways. One example would be that during the time we have students who go in paid internships for the summer. COVID hit during the spring. A tremendous amount of our students, actually, the companies had to take away their internships. But companies like United Healthcare and PwC and others, and JP Morgan Chase said, time out. We're not going to take away their internships. We're going to keep it going. And United Health Group stepped forward and said, not only will we take on our interns and pay them through the summer we just left during the midst of COVID, we'll make it virtual so they don't have to come in. And they have a program called Optum 100, where we brought in 100 students who had been turned down for their internships. They were paid. They would have been out of work, impacting the family economics. But because United Health Group saw forward in working with the community, we were able to put those paid interns to work. And we're very proud. So that's why I say the nation can work together. Corporate America can solve things like this. It's always an opportunity when we come together and work together.
Indeed. I'm so grateful for all that you do and that we have a chance to talk about it and share about it. I have, as you know, I've been an advocate for these kinds of programs for a very long time. Um, and I'm looking forward to hearing about your report and your next steps. And I hope that you will put more articles about it into the American Diversity Report. So not only do our national readers hear about it, but also our international readers to understand what's doable, and maybe they can participate too.
All right.
Yeah.
Oh, absolutely. The report will be widespread.
Excellent.
So thank you for giving us the ramp to share this with your audience and the American Report Out. We really appreciate it. We think the voice of journalism is the right voice to help get out what I call irreversible, sustainable solutions to what can work in our nation. We've seen it happen before through times of tragedy, through times of trouble. When the nation comes together, all set aside, we solve problems. And that's what we're about. So we can't thank you enough for being a voice and allowing us to share what we're doing with your audience as we speak today.
Oh, my pleasure, because indeed, in addition to being a journalist, I have a background as an urban planner. And what you are doing is so vital for our communities, our cities, our neighborhoods, and any way I can help you, let me know. This is what is needed to reboot this country and every city in it as we go through these perilous times. Is there anything else you'd like to add that we haven't talked about?
Well, Deborah, you left off with saying if there was ever a time we need to reboot the nation. I recall an opportunity to go back and trace in our 50 years we're celebrating this week, to trace the steps of our founder. And I said intentionally, and it's the truth, he was from a well-to-do family, but he took up a cause to say, I've got to do something about the injustices that were going on in the nation. Well, not only did he create INROADS, he ended up in the priesthood. He ended up as a father, Frank Carr, and he retired as the parish priest in Yuma, Arizona, years ago. And that was shortly before he got an award from the King Center. He got the Saluteness to Greatness Award and was awarded by Coretta Scott King for his body of work we now call INROADS. But when he ended in Yuma, Arizona, and he passed away, we went back and traced his steps. Today, St. Francis de Assisi in Yuma, Arizona, is still an active parish focused on the poor, the underprivileged, and his work goes on even one step further. The new parish priest by the name of Father Emilio Chapa is an INROADS alum. So because of the body of work, I have to take back the steps to say, from a founder and a vision back in Saw the March on Washington, from Princeton University to St. Francis de Assisi in Yuma, Arizona, to the privilege of myself being able to help continue the next 50 years of legacy, it makes a big difference. And so I just want to thank you for the opportunity. And then I encourage all of us out there working in the diversity, equity, inclusion space that feel encouraged. Together, we are a community of action. Yes. And this community of action will work together to get things done. So I thank you for the privilege, and I thank you for the opportunity to speak.
Oh, hear, hear. And Sabrina, do you have anything you'd like to add?
Yeah, I mean, I would say this has been such a riveting discussion with you, Deborah, learning just about more with the American Diversity Report, with Forrest, and the incredible work that you're doing shepherding INROADS. And I think myself, as an account director for corporate and consumer at BCW Global, we are so proud to drive this conversation forward, move our communities, our clients, the people we serve every day to a more diverse, inclusive, and equitable future. And hearing this discussion just reminds me of why this work is so important, but more importantly, the role that we all have to play to make a positive impact.
And I echo that, Sabrina. As a matter of fact, Deborah, what America doesn't get to see a lot of is what happens that you don't see.
Yes.
Sabrina is what you don't see with BCW. For 5 years in a row, as a nonprofit, we get a chance to display what we impact with. What you don't see behind the scenes is folks who are experts like Sabrina and BCW and their focus on diversity and inclusion actually stands up INROADS and position us to be able to do what we do in kind. And so we cannot thank them without even a notice. They show up and they help us get the word out and get the students involved. So we can't thank all those in kind and pro bono help. We really appreciate all the work. We know it's more than just a gift. It's actually a commitment. And so to the leadership over at BCW and Sabrina, thank you very much. Every kid is depending on you to lift, and you're doing it. So thank you.
Absolutely. Honored to do the work and partner with you, Forrest. And again, you, Deborah, for just creating the space for these courageous conversations, these discussions to take place. I mean, now more than ever, we need to talk about the divides in our countries, figure out how we can unite each other, but also accelerate the diversity and inclusion in corporate America where we need it the most. So couldn't think of a better time or a better day for this discussion, especially for INROADS' 50th anniversary. The timing is truly significant.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
My pleasure, both of you, to have you join us and share what you're doing so that others can support you, be inspired, be motivated to do the same, because that's what we need. None of us stands alone in this. We all work together. So thank you so much, both of you, for joining us today. Thank you, audience, for being part of this conversation. Now go out and do something, right? So
We call it do something awesome.
Do something awesome. I love it. I love it. Will do. Thanks again, and we'll be back with the American Diversity Report podcasts, as always, and onward and upward.
Thank you.